Hello there, it's Liam from Unique Cars and Parts, and I'm with Len at the I'm getting this wrong. It's a bit of a tongue twister, Len.
Vietnam Veterans Museum, not a war museum, Veterans Museum, yeah.
So a Veterans Museum, and it's in New Haven, Phillip Island.
Yeah, New Haven, Phillip Island, Victoria, and it's a Veterans Museum. We're trying to tell the veteran story, not the war story.
And we're sitting inside a UH-1, which was... you told me UH-1 sounded like Huey, and that's why it was nicknamed the Huey.
Yeah, that's where it got the nickname. It's a utility helicopter 1 and UH-1, Huey. And that's where it came from. But this is the ubiquitous Huey. We all loved them.
Did this one see service in the war?
Yes, and flew in Vietnam for 7 years. Apparently took ground fire 3 times and had to land. Not actually shot down, but had to land and check out that the aircraft was still okay. But just about every helicopter that flew in Vietnam had a few bullet holes in it, but they just kept flying there.
And this one was flown by Aussies?
Yes, 9 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force, yeah.
And what was the purpose? It looks, I can see it's got a machine gun on the back there. So was this to bring troops in and evacuate them?
Yes, it used for troop insertion and exfiltration, or whatever the word is, but it could also be used for cargo. We would get our ration and water resupply out on fire support bases from the Hueys. It used for troop insertion. It would carry a section of riflemen, which was nine men. And there would be 5 men sitting across the seat across the back there that you can see, 2 sitting on the floor back to back, and generally the section machine gunner and the section commander would be the last in, and they would sit on the floor with the door open, and sometimes with their feet on the skids or just feet along the floor there. Yeah.
So a total crew, if you will, of how many did that add up to? I started to lose count.
Okay, no, you had 2 pilots, and 2 door gunners, and 9 infantry section, 9-man infantry section. Yeah, so
14 altogether.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, and you were mainly to do with the artillery when you were serving, and you were on the 105 howitzers. Yeah. Did these things ever bring ammunition, supplies, and that sort of thing into you if you were forward a long way forward? Yes,
these would bring our ration of food supplies in, but they weren't powerful enough to lift the gun. The M2A2, but they were capable of lifting the L5, the smaller of the 2 guns, but not with ammunition. The air mobility of the M2A2 was with the Chinook helicopter, the twin rotor helicopter, and they would lift the gun, which weighed approximately 2.5 tonne, and 2 or 3 tonne of ammunition plus the gun detachment. So they're quite a lift, yeah.
And when did the Huey first go into service?
In the Australian Air Force in the early 60s. I'm not sure, and I do apologise. I should look that up.
No, you're right. We don't expect you to be an encyclopedia. So early 60s, and they saw service with the Australian Army right through the war, and then sometime after the war, I'm thinking.
Yes, it would be the late 90s, I think, when the last Hueys flew in Australia. I was in Adelaide, I think it was 1998, or might have been after the turn of the century, on Vietnam Veterans Day, which is the 18th of August, the anniversary of the Battle of Long Tan, which was our first big battle, but no means our only. And they did a flyover, and the announcement came that it was the last time the Hueys would fly in Australia. It was quite an emotional moment for.
Yeah, I was going to say there'd be a few tears shed knowing that as you're watching them go over.
Yeah, come out goosebumps again. But the most emotional with the Hueys was in 1987, the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Canberra, and we lined up in Anzac Avenue, and we heard them coming. And a couple of Hueys flew over, and there wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. It was just such a bloody magnificent moment.
And now they've got a stellar reputation. I mean, everyone thinks of them very fondly. What made them so popular with the troops?
Well, probably the fact that we could hear them coming, and yeah, mate, I'm out of here. Pretty much.
So is your ticket back to base?
Yeah, ticket back to base. Yeah, but no, we all love them, and the pilots, the Huey pilots, every one of them should have got a Victoria Cross. They were absolutely magnificent. I would advise people to get Mr. Google to search the history of John Coghlan, Snowy Coghlan, the highest decorated Air Force person to serve in Vietnam. I had the pleasure of meeting John. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but he was awarded the DFC, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and very highest decorated RAFI in Vietnam. A wonderful man, extremely brave man. In one instance, the helicopter landed, and he left and made 4 trips across, recovering the wounded crew of an American helicopter, loaded them on his own chopper, and then got out. Everybody loved the Hueys. They were just our salvation, yeah.
Well, I think, the Hollywood stereotype is that you'd see these things go into, it was so much that they sort of gloss over. But one of the things that I come away with when I watch a movie is that these things would go into battle no matter what the conditions. If there were troops on the ground and they had to get down there, they would do it. And I understand what you say by they were brave. They didn't say it's too much of a firefight there, we're pulling out. They went in, didn't they?
They certainly did. And another one to asked Dr. Google to look up would be Bob Grandin. Bob Grandin, and he was one of the pilots at the Battle of Long Tan, and getting late in the afternoon, heavy monsoonal rain, getting dark. The powers to be said, no, you can't go. D Company was almost out of ammunition, and Bob Grandin, against orders, flew. I believe there was 2 helicopters. They flew in and dropped ammunition to the besieged members of D Company at low height, exposed to fire, and taking into consideration that the D Company were up against some 2,000 to 2,500 Vietnamese at the time, and almost out of ammunition, outnumbered 20 to 1. And what saved the day was the bravery of those Air Force officers who flew those Hueys in, and we love those guys, yeah.
And being loaded up with ammunition, they were a slow-moving, easy target flying bomb.
Basically, I wouldn't really say slow-moving, but yeah, they were loaded for bear for sure.
Well, a little bit slower than the Canberra jet bomber you've got out the back.
Yeah, just a little bit slower than the Canberras, but no, incredibly brave men. And I could recommend a book, actually, The Battle of Long Tan, as told by the commanders to Bob Grandin.
Now, these things obviously were able to take quite a bit of shell fire and gunfire.
Oh, for sure, yeah. They're basically aluminium and fiberglass, but their nerve system, so to speak, we're surrounded here. They take a tremendous amount of fire, and there's an American warrant officer pilot, and he actually got shot down 3 times in one day. If it had been me, I would have given up and not gone back. But yeah, they take an incredible amount of punishment.
Hang on, he got shot down 3 times in one day, yeah. And got into a different chopper and went back up again.
Yeah, because his troops on the ground needed him. Yeah, yeah.
And obviously they were able to salvage the other choppers.
Well, possibly, yeah. A fellow by the name of Mason, he was a warrant officer. No, they take a tremendous amount of fire and continue flying, yeah. Yeah.
A pilot's best friend by the sound of things.
A digger's best friend, that's for bloody sure, yeah.
Well, thanks, Len. It's been great having a look around. I'm lucky enough to sit in the... Now, am I on the right side? Is this where the pilot... you said pilot, so they were both equally...
Yeah, the aircraft commander did sit on the right, And
so I'm the commander.
You are, yeah.
I'm in charge.
Yeah, but don't bother giving me orders. I never took them from majors. I won't take it from you. But, yeah, you're on the right-hand side. And if you notice what's called the collective, just the lever to your left, it's got all the switches on it. Yes. The one on this side does not have the switches on it.
Right.
And by moving that alters the pitch on the blades.
Okay.
And it's biting deeper into the air or not, and the twist grip on the collective is the turbine speed.
Okay. Okay.
And, but the difference in the two, they had identical controls, except the aircraft commander had the additional switches on his collective. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Well, how lucky am I to not only get to speak to you and learn a lot about the Huey, but to actually sit in the pilot seat as the commander. You can call me commander for the rest of the interview, which is finishing in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, okay, commander. I request you order me to have a cup of coffee.
Yes, sounds like a plan. Okay. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye.